Hello, everybody, and welcome to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With me, as always, is my good friend, Dan the Man, in the producer studio. Say hello to everybody, Dan.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good.
And happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. We are just about at that time. Of course, this will air after that, so I hope you had a good time and your family didn't get the best of you. And you stayed sober, and you stayed on path, and you didn't eat too much so that you don't have to diet too much, and got all the gifts you wanted. And if you didn't, go out and buy them on sale on the 26th, and hope you had a good time. And that's what I plan to do. We'll see what happens. It's always in the cards with the family. You never know. We are a mostly recovery podcast. That means all things recovery. And you might be saying recovery from what? Recovery from this crazy life that has us all programmed doing this normal behavior that we think is normal, but it's killing all of us. Worth healthcare recovery rates in the world, in our country. Worse this and that, depression, anxiety, you name all the markers. And so we're doing something wrong. And so the tools we have from 12-step recovery meetings and from the 12 steps and just recovery since 1935 and with AA are just tools to help you in life, to help you get a better life, get it back on track, put your rudder from your boat and set your sails to be going in the trajectory that you want. So I hope you can get something out of this, and each week we do with a different topic. Today, though, we're going to deal with one of the most important topics we have in recovery, one of the most important tools to save your life, and this is for everybody. And you know what? If everybody did one of these, they would have a much happier life on the backside of it. This is a tool that churches do not have. There's several tools within the 12-step program that if churches were to adopt them, they probably wouldn't lose as many parishioners, and they would also have more success. And that is this tool we're going to talk about today of inventory. How do we do inventory? What is an inventory? Why do we even bother to do an inventory? So let's get into that, and I hope you'll find this very helpful, particularly if you just happen to find yourself at the third, fourth step right now. So you're going to be the lucky winner and get this great information right up front. So I want to back up and say some of the tools and techniques and tricks I'm going to give you today, we've learned over the years since recovery started, okay? We're going on the 90th anniversary this next year of AA starting this movement in our world. And now it is a worldwide movement with so many meetings out there for so many different conditions using the same 12-step tools. That what was written in the big book is the template, it's our textbook, it's the way we do it, but we've learned these little things to add to, as Dan likes to say in his recovery, I add to, and they help immensely to get at a deeper level of healing, a deeper level of results. And Dan will verify that when he talks. It's just astounding how these little things that we've learned over the years can bring you what you're lacking. And then recently I had a patient who had relapsed and was saying that they did the work and it didn't work. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. This prescription works. We were clear about that. But if you do it cockeyed, or if you don't do it perhaps with the right angle of approach, it will not work for you. It may fail. So let's get you the best version of inventory today and get you off on the right foot with that. So let's back up and talk about why we do inventory. I love analogies. I use them in my group all the time because pictures are worth 1,000 words, as I always say. And so the analogy I was given from one of my greatest teachers is that we're walking through life with a knapsack and or a large steel trash can strapped to our back. And our trash can represents our conscience. It's the thing that never forgets. You know, it's that little part of us that even though I don't want to look, I don't want to remember what I did, I want to bury it deeper than a bone in the deepest land, but it is there. I know I did it, and my conscience is like, yeah, we're not going to let you forget that. And so, but I don't want to deal with it. So what happens with us humans is we're so busy, we aren't in touch with our emotions. We don't have the tools to deal with the pain of the whatever happened, what I did wrong, whatever it might be, that I just go right over the shoulder. It lands in the can. I think I'm outstepping it. I think I'm going to outrun it. I think I've left it behind. But then suddenly, 10, 20 years later, I'm drinking myself to death. I'm drugging myself to death. Or I'm just unhappy. Or I'm bitter, or I'm resentful, or I've got this knot in my gut and it's giving me an ulcer. And I will not connect that to this unresolved stuff from the past. Now, my favorite term for that is unfinished business. This is stuff that has not been finalized. It's not been finished. You haven't put dots on the ends of the sentences and crossed the T's and said it's done, put the contract away. It's open. It's still there. It's in your trash can waiting to be dealt with. Now, it would be bad enough if we had 1 or 2 of these, maybe even 10. But over lifetime, you just start filling up that trash can. And it gets so full and it gets so mixed together. And we know what happens with trash the longer it sits. It ferments, it decays, it decomposes. It starts to mix in with its juices all together. And you don't know what's what. You just know that you don't feel comfortable in your own skin. And we're taking our foot and we're shoving that can down to make room for more. And we're convincing ourselves like it doesn't really bother me, or my dad's passed away, so I've let that go, or I talked to him one time and I made peace with him. Really? A lifetime of shit with your father, and one talk you think settled all that? You've still got emotions. You've still got all that unresolved anger, hurt, fear, whatever it is. So that's the stuff that's waiting to be dealt with. And on your own, to give you the task, I want you to take that trash can out and dump it out and sort through it on your own. You wouldn't know where to begin because, like I said, it's all mishmashed together. The example I use of that is like, when we were a kid, you had Play-Doh, and it was fun to play with your Play-Doh, but you got bored, so you decided to take each color and mash them together. And then you're looking at it trying to start with Mom, I need new Play-Doh because I've screwed it up. All my colors are mixed together. That's what happens with our stuff, our unfinished business. So we have this tool of inventory where we are going to try to write down an itemized list, as Bill says in the big book, the stock in trade. In other words, what have you got? What's going on inside your soul? What do you suspect even might be going on inside your soul? What bothers you? What gets on your nerves? Who gets on your nerves? What triggers you? What gives you resentments? All that jazz that you say you're somehow above and you're not a human being, it doesn't bother you. Or as our friend said in the question last week, I'm spiritually fit, so it must not bother me. No, you're a human being. Of course it bothers you. And it comes out. You snap, right? Somebody hits you the wrong time, wrong day, and trigger, and all that stuff comes out, even though you say it's not there, right? So this tool is so effective. And I don't know of any other way. I've watched people try to do 10 or 20 years of psychotherapy or become yoga masters over decades. And I've seen them not get the leg up or get the clarity on their issues. And I'm a therapist. I'm saying this. I will tell my patients, do your steps work first before you go to any therapist, and you will save yourself a ton of money. Because you're going to go in there telling your therapist, I got to work on this, this, and this, and this. And your therapist is going to be like, whoa, how do you have that awareness? Because I've done inventory. I know what my issues are. I know what I'm not finished with yet. I know what still bothers me. Okay? So, throughout human history, there's been this practice of writing stuff down and going and talking to someone about your stuff that's safe, someone that's a leader, that's more spiritually advanced than you, someone you respect and look up to, but mostly trust. And that's been a tradition in so many different faiths and so many different practices throughout man's history, and particularly the healing process of writing things down. We've lost that in our culture because we're texting all day long, or we're using our computers and a keyboard. So there's your number one starting rule. Do not try to do your inventory on a computer. It's not the same effect. You have pen, pencil in hand on paper, and that tactile feel will give you a deeper healing than doing any printing with your fingers on a computer keyboard. So that's number one. A couple of other basic rules. You want to get a notebook that is full-size. And I brought one, for example, today to show you how this works. I've had many sponsees come back to me, and they've got this little artsy-fartsy journal that's 4 by 6 inches. And you know what happens? They're trying to cram their life story and all their stuff into this little space, and they're calling me and complaining that they're getting carpal tunnel and arm cramps and angry because they can't do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I told you to get a spiral-bound 8.5 by 11-inch notebook. This is proven to work the best. Please follow directions. And when I say spiral bound, you see that? That's what you want. Why do you want that? Because you want to be able to lay your book open on the desk like that. If you don't, and you have an artsy-fartsy journal, you're going to have to be doing this. Especially when you're talking to your sponsor about your stuff later. This is out. Look, boom, it's right there. I can work on it. All right? So we're going to get into the mechanics of how you make your columns and how we do the inventory, but those are just some basic deals, okay? Get you started. So let me go back for just a second. And I was in the retail trade for a long time, and I managed stores, and we had to do inventory every year. And it was a nightmare. We had to bring in a company to help us that would give us workers, but we, as the manager, were solely responsible for the count, and we were responsible to make sure our people did it and then to have these workers do it. And it was just a nightmare, especially if you worked for the company I worked with, where we had a lot of small little 10-cent items, and we'd have a whole bin of them. We have to literally dump that whole bin out and count each 10-cent item. Imagine. Well, you know what? That's a helpful analogy for when you're doing the 4-step. The whole idea of the 4-step is we're going to be kicking up the corners, the dark closet of your life, and we do not want you to re-feel or re-experiencing these traumas and these tricky items as much as possible. Now, obviously, during the process of just thinking about them, it may be a little upsetting, but you don't want to dwell on them. So I need you to think in your mind as you're writing things down as a general guideline. I'm just taking an account. I'm just doing an inventory. I would tell my sponsees the one thing you don't want to do if I've got a little 10-cent item is pick it up out of the bin and go, oh God, I can't believe that's an awful memory. I did one. What we got here over here? Jesus God, this too. I did that. 2. You'll never get done, man. And if you were working for me, I'd fire you because we wouldn't get our store inventory done. We've got to just get it on paper. We're not trying to relive those resentments, which is what a resentment is, to re-experience, re-feel it. Try as much as possible. Be objective. Follow the directions as they're written. I actually counseled a patient of mine right now who's stuck in their inventory. And I said, why? And they're like, well, it was the perfection thing. They're trying to do it perfectly. And I said, first of all, that's impossible. Secondly, you're going to get what you get the first time. Don't try to do it perfectly. You're going to do many inventories throughout your recovery. You just try to get as much as you can the first time, and that's enough, okay? It's going to be fine. And ultimately, here's an overall rule. What you write down doesn't really matter. Now, this is going to sound odd to you because I'm going to talk to you a lot about writing stuff down today. But what matters is that you have something written down so that when you go to talk to your sponsor, you have something to talk about in step 5. Step 5 is where the juice happens. Step 5 is where the miracle magic happens, not in step 4. You might get some relief from writing this down, but you're not going to be freed from it. It's in step 5, 6, 7 that we get freed of it. So don't freaking worry so much. Just write down what you got. Okay? And we'll worry about the rest later. All right, a couple of guidelines to keep you safe, because I'm going to warn you, it's important. You are responsible for your own safety during your 4-step. And the number one thing you need to do is guard your journal with your life. You have to make absolutely certain that nobody gets a peek inside your personal business. We have a couple of ways to deal with this. And even if you think you're clever and you hide your journal underneath the spare tire of your car that your wife never drives, if you're an alcoholic and she's mad at you, don't be surprised if she finds it, because I had that happen to one of my guys. I also had another alcoholic who was very smart, and he took me at my word that it was his job to protect it, and he got a hardcover spiral notebook, same size, but it was hard covered, like hard. And he went in his shop and he used a high-speed drill press and went bzzzt, bzzzt, and put combination locks on his freaking journal. And he came to me one night and said, "Wife ain't getting in there." He's trying to pry it open. I gave him an A+. I was like, perfect, dude. Astonishing. Fantastic. Must protect your journal's sanctity. Otherwise, you're not going to write it down. If you don't feel safe, you will not put it down, especially our worst memories, our worst deeds we've done in life. So please, protect. Make sure nobody can see it. No prying eyes can get to see it. Number 2, anything you've got that's really particularly tricky, write it out in code. All right, so if you've got something that's just horrible and maybe you could be prosecuted for, if you're a drug addict, you've done some horrible things, we're not going to let the world prosecute us. We're going to put ABC. Now, not ABC. Like, for instance, the example I use is, some guy wakes up in a chicken coop one morning and his pants are down around his legs and he doesn't know where he is, but he looks over and this chicken's looking at him like, and he's like, what did I do? And so how would you write that? Well, if he's that chicken coop, chicken F, like maybe I F to chicken. So put CCF. Now, the world doesn't know what that is. Nobody has an idea what CCF stands for. But you know what it is, and your higher power knows what it is in the first column. We're getting to those directions in a second. So just write the things that you know might be touchy in code for your own safety. So those two things. Guard your journal with your life and write it in code. And I'm going to give you a third one that I do for my sponsees, and I encourage every sponsor out there to give your sponsee this break. Tell them you will never read their journal. I am never, under any circumstance, going to make you read your journal to me or read your journal unless I have your permission. Now, if we're in fifth step and I ask you to share on something and it's your choice to share on it or not, I want you to feel that safety so that you at least write it down. Again, I cannot tell you the value of just getting things on paper. It will free you. It will begin the process of freeing you. So do not feel hemmed in any way that somebody's going to see your stuff, because I'm never going to see my guy's stuff. Now, during the fifth step, I might ask him to look in his journal if there's anything more or if he wants to see anything he forgot, but I'm not going to grab it up out of him and violate his privacy. It's up to him whether he wants to get free and share it in the fifth step. So do that for your sponsee. I find that to work very, very well to make them feel comfortable to get their worst secrets down. All right. There is this deal with a warning statement. I'll just touch on this lightly. It's a little assignment we give for our guys to start with, and that is on the first page to write a little note warning people not to go any further. And I tell them to have fun with it so they can get pictures. I had a sponsee who put up hazard cones that you see on the street. He put those on here from a magazine and started writing. And you can write nice things or you can write really ugly, like, I will come you and kill you and screw your skull and kill your kids, but do not read this, whatever. That way, and if we start a few pages in, like I don't recommend you start on the first page, then they have to actually break that to violate the warning code, and they have to actually look several pages to find what you wrote. So those are just little tips of the trade we've learned. So warning statement, start a few pages in. Don't start on the first page. All right, so let's talk about formatting and how this deal works. Bill Wilson in the big book gives us a column example of a four-step. And he does the first three columns, does not do the fourth column in the example. And it's beautiful. It's simplistic. It's almost too simplistic. You're going to think it shouldn't work, but it works beautifully. And what he has are these four columns. And what you want to do when you're first starting out is you want to list these numbers on each page. I tell my guy to do about 20 pages of this. So I tell him to write 1, 2, 3, 4 for your columns. And you're going to make lists down the page. We don't write across the page. When you make a list, like you're doing a grocery list, you're going down the page, right? And that it just flows much smoother that way. So I tell them, go through 20 pages and do that so you don't have to stop your flow when you're writing your stuff down and do this formatting stuff. I tell them immediately right at the start, go through 20 pages and write 1, 2, 3, 4 for 20 pages and have it open like this. Because again, that's why we want a spiral bound so that, boom, it's right in front of me. I don't have to turn the page to write the next column. I can read across the page what I wrote, first column, second column, third column, fourth column, right? Okay. Now, let's break down your columns and what we want to do here. So the first column is the people, places, and things that you suspect in any way you might have any kind of issue with whatsoever. I don't care how small it is. There is a guideline I want you to think of as a mantra in your head as you're making your first column list, and that is, when in doubt, write it out. When in doubt, write it out. So if it even comes up in session and you're sitting there going, should I write it down? Should I not write it down? I tell my guy, just write it down. It's much better to find out later when we get to the fourth column that you don't really have an issue with that. It's not a big deal. But God forbid if you don't write it down and it turns out to be a major thing that you forgot, it might get you drunk. So what do you got to lose? You got lots of pages. And I told you to write everything down. So just put it down, man. Even my dog. Well, who knows why you're mad at your dog? I don't know what came up in my session. Write it down. Okay, I don't see why. No, stop arguing. Just write it down. I tell you have to fight newcomers on this stuff. Just write it down, man. Stop thinking. Stop thinking. And again, I want to make this very clear. We're not going to work across the page. We're going to work down the page one more time, making our list. And we make our list one at a time. So when I write down my dog, I'm not going to the second column next. I'm not going to the third column next. I'm going straight down just in the first column. Now, what does a session look like? Because you're doing these in sessions. And I will tell my guy, I want you to do about 3 or 4 sessions a week, and I want them to be spaced out. A lot of guys will try to bolt down and get it all done at once. That's not as good. You want to have this time in between sessions to reflect and to ponder and to let more things bubble up. If you're sitting there and you're forcing it and doing it like a crash course homework assignment you didn't get done until the last second, you won't get the same results. So what does a session look like? I want you to choose 45 minutes to an hour, whatever days of the week work for you. Say it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because that's when your kids are going to bed for school early, and so you can stay up late at night and do it. Or maybe it's before you go to work and you want to do it early in the morning.
That was an accident.
Okay.
But let's just say for a minute, she says she's going to be here in just a minute. So when she does, she's going to text me and we'll stop it. And,
Okay. So continue.
yeah, you can just keep on rolling. I'll cut it out.
All right. So when your session, you're going to dedicate that, you're going to be fully committed to that. And when I do a session, I make it a bit of a sacred thing. I play the kind of music I want to hear, something low, no beats, no lyrics, nothing to distract you, something very chill. You can do nature sounds. You can do a noise machine. I will burn incense. I'll light some candles. I'll make it a ceremony. I'll make it a sacred thing, you know. Some people will try to do their 4-step on the bus. I don't know if you get the same result. I am making a commitment that 3 times a week, 4 times a week, I'm going to commit to this, and I'm committing to it the same as if I have a doctor's appointment. I'm not going to miss it, okay? And so maybe the kids' game comes up. Maybe every now and then you might need to miss a session, but I'll call my sponsor and explain why. But I'm making a commitment to him that I'm going to take this time to do this work. And in the very first session, we are working on the first column only, right? We're not going across the page, just one at a time. So in this first column, one more thing about formatting, and I'm so glad I brought a book to show you. So let's say I put my dog in that first line. I want to skip the next 2 lines before I put the next entry. So I'll put my dog here in the first line, skip 1 line, skip 2 lines. Then that goes my next entry, skip 1 line, skip 2 lines. Then that's my next entry. 2 lines, like about that, between each entry. You're going to need that for later when we get to the other columns, because in the other columns there's more to write. So allow yourself that two spaces in between each entry so that you can get enough room for later. Now, I run into a lot of alcoholics who will come back to me and they'll say, like, well, I've been busy and I've been writing stuff down, but I've only got about 20 names. And I'm like, whoa. You just came in here barely alive and you're drinking and drugging yourself to death. And you're telling me that's all that bothers you in life? Let me help you, my friend. So I will get him in my car after the meeting and I'll intentionally do my best as an asshole alcoholic, which is what we can be when we want to be. And I will try to prick him and inflame him and throw every hot political topic, every hot societal thing, every damn thing that I know is going to get on his nerves and say, oh, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And by the time I get through with him, he's got 100 things. And I'll even sit with him while he writes them down if he wants me to. I don't care. But this idea that you're not really bothered, let's be honest about what alcoholism is. I get 20 resentments driving to work every day. Do you not? How many resentments do you get? Left lane drivers, not seating the way, not getting out of the way. People that don't have any muffler on their car and they're blowing smoke all over your ass and you can't smell because it's coming in your air conditioning system. Truck drivers that think they own the road and they take a wide arc and you have to get out of the way just before they run you over. I could just go on and on and on. Gas prices, speed limits, people that don't obey the speed limits, red lights, people that run red lights. Again, this is just whatever bothers you. No matter how silly it appears, you have to unplug your mind and just write it out. Okay? All right, so one more time, because I know sometimes people get confused. I'm going to put my entry, 2-line skip, 2-line entry, 2-line skip. And you want to sort of get a flow that you're just getting it down as things come to mind. Now, my sponsee will be confused, and I'll tell him, we'll start with mom and dad. That should be on everybody's first step. And your mind is going to argue. Your mind is going to say, my parents were fine. And what are you talking about? I don't have any issues with. Just write it down. Why? These people have been longer in your life than anyone else. They were there at the moment you were born. Maybe they've done 1 or 2 things in your life that got on your nerves. And maybe you're just not being honest or aren't aware of it. So please just get it down. So a typical list goes mom, dad, brother, sis, neighbor, guy at work, and then you sort of cover your present life, right? Get all the people that are current in your life. Then I find it very helpful to go through periods of your life. Think about jobs you've had in the future. Like, oh yeah, I was working at that. I remember that guy. I hate that guy. And it's astonishing how many people you can come with by doing that. I was at this school and I dated that girl. She was insane. I got to get her down. And again, you don't have to know why it bothers you at this point. That will be figured out in the fourth column, and it will be figured out by your sponsor later. This is just writing the contents of your mind, and that's why it's called inventory. Take it out, say 1. Take it out, say 2. You're just taking inventory. Just count it, put it down, move on. Don't think. That's the hardest part for people to do. Don't think, just flow. If you will do this the way we direct, suddenly you'll be like, turn the page, skipping 2 lines. And then all of a sudden you got 30 names. And you're like, oh, where'd the time go? And it does kind of work like that naturally you'll just run out of steam. And then you're looking at the clock and say, well, I think it's time to end. Now at the end of your session, this is the hardest part for a lot of my people to do. You close your notebook and you put it away somewhere. Don't look it over. Unfortunately, a lot of my sponsees want to look back and say, well, what did I write? And why did I write that? And what is this? Oh my God. And they're going to relive it. I told you that will destroy you in the 4th step. Your goal is to take inventory. Your goal is not to figure out why or to relive and re-experience it. So please close your notebook. Session's over. Lock it away. Make sure nobody can find it. And then here's another hard part that we find for most people. Go out and reward yourself after every session completed. I don't care if you want to grab an ice cream cone out of the refrigerator, if you want to go to the store and get a treat, if you want to download some new music, buy a new book online, get a new top or bottom for your outfit. I don't care what it is. Take your dog to the park and throw the frisbee, but you've got to treat your little kid to something that will help it heal, because you've stirred up the ghosts of your past. You've actually gone into the closet and started pulling stuff out. And if you haven't been in that closet a long time, how that kicks up the dust, right? So please reward yourself after the session. And then usually you'll sleep well and you won't be dwelling on what you wrote. It will be like, cool, your little kid's taken care of, you're taken care of, session's done, leave it alone. Again, not your job to figure out why it's down, your job just to put it down. So you've done your first column. And again, a good first column, 100 names, 100 things, 100 items, at least. I've been told 100's a good start, 300's too much. 120 I'll accept. It's over 100. That's good. But again, if my guy's balking at him, I'll say, well, damn, at the meeting last week, you were bitching about inflation. You were bitching about this guy just got voted in office. You were bitching about gas prices. Oh, you're supposed to write that down? It's coming out your mouth, so something must bother you about it. Everything, guys. Write down everything, okay? All right, that's the first column. Second column, you're going to actually try to put a short statement of what is it that bothers you about that person, place, or thing, or ideal, principle, institution, whatever it is, okay? So let's say, jokingly, as I said, I put my dog in the first column. Second column, I am allowed 19 words to make this statement, because the last thing we want you doing is writing a 3-part novel about your resentment. You will get drunk. You will get high. You won't be able to take it. The pain will be too much. You're kicking up too much dust. So where do we get that example? In the AA Big Book, on Bill's template, the guy he writes the most about is Mr. Brown, his employer, and the names have been changed to protect his identity. So don't tell me that Bill didn't use a code. He didn't use the guy's real name that he was thinking about when he wrote that example. So that's where the code shit comes from. And so he writes 19 words on his employer, and that's it. That's all you get. And we have found that formula works great if you use short statements. Don't use and. Don't use it was a dark and stormy night. Just write jerk. Robbed me, cheated on me, took my wife, betrayed me. Anything else? No, I think that's about it. It's astounding how 19 words can be enough if you don't keep repeating yourself or using unnecessary words. Just do a short summary, and if you're not sure what to write for that thing right away, go to the next entry and keep moving down the page. The idea is to always keep that flow going, always keep moving. You can always come back to it later if you're not sure what to write. Sometimes you might just want to write a curse word, and that's allowed. With some of your deepest ones from the past, you might just write fuck. Okay, that's a good start. We'll come back to that. And again, stop analyzing, just write something down. That's all. 19 words total, short statements. Don't say the or and. Leave that out. Just bup, 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 bup. And I've had people in my life that I could write three-part novels on. And I found that 19 words summed it up really well. So just follow that guideline. It'll keep you safe. What do we do at the end of the session? Once again, put the thing away. Go reward your little kid. Take care of your little kid. Get a good night's sleep. And we'll get the next session next time. How long does it take to complete your columns? In general, I find a week at a time. And then I'll usually move my guy into the next column, even if he's got a few more in the first one, because I don't want him hanging out in the 4-step. If you're losing steam in the 4-step, you will not finish it. I've seen this too many times. I am constantly pushing my guys, saying, keep moving, keep going. We're going forward, keep moving. Okay, you got some down? Let's do column 2 this week and still do some column 1. And here's the best news of all. You can add more to your book throughout your whole process. So you've got 4 to 6 weeks here over this whole process where you can just keep adding more at any time. So don't freak out that you don't have everything down. Let's just keep moving so that I have you interested, because you'll get bored hanging out in the first column. You want to work on different stuff. Trust me. Now, here's my golden tool that I think is the most fun during a 4-step. I'm going to highly recommend that you carry a pack of Post-it notes or a small notebook in your pocket and a pen wherever you go in life. And that way, when you're at the grocery store and somebody gives you a cross-eyed look and you're like, what you looking at me? And you don't know why you're reacting that way, you're going to go home in your next session and you're going to write, guy gave me a cross-eyed look. You don't have to know his name. Don't have to know what guy has a mustache, whatever. Doesn't matter. You will find out later why that triggered you. You can't see it now. But if you got a weird twinge, put that down, man. And all day long, you're going to be astonished how at work and simple interactions with people, you're just getting irritated and annoyed. You're like, what the I don't, this guy has bad breath. Fuck. He talks to you right in your face. Write him down. Bad breath guy. Oh, yeah, get the bad breath guy. It's going to be fun, actually. It's like Columbo having his little list of notes with clues on it. Like, oh, what about this here? Well, it's okay, write that guy down. So, again, that's highly recommended. It keeps the 4-step fun. All right, moving on. Third column is a gimme column. It's the easiest column to do, and I find people complicate the crap out of this. Bill has 6 things in the AA Big Book that he talks about for how these people and things affected us. How did it affect me? What did it threaten? What did it bother the most in me? So again, I've got my dog in the first column. Second column, he pooped in the house and he's not following directions and he barks at me sometimes and wakes me up at night. Okay, there's my 19 words. I'd probably less than that. Third column, what did that affect? Did it affect my self-esteem? No, not really. I still feel pretty good about myself. Did it affect my security? No, well, kind of, because he's barking and I'm expecting him to bark at criminals and not at me, so maybe I could write security. Does it affect my fear? Well, that's a tricky one. Fear, I find, is in everybody's in some way or another. It's almost in every one of your ones. So I could say the fear of not being in control and he's not following my directions, and that pisses me off because I'm the master and he's not. So maybe a little bit of fear, I'll write that in there. The 2 other ones are real simple. Personal relations, doesn't affect that with my dog. Sexual relations, hopefully does not affect that with your dog. And
ambitions.
What is it?
Ambitions.
Ambitions, thank you. My dog is not preventing me from being, well, hold up. He is. He's keeping me up at night. He's barking and keeping me up at night. That is affecting my ambitions to be my best when I go to work, when I'm trying to kick butt to get that new promotion and impress my boss because I'm tired. Yes, it does affect my ambitions. It's I know there's crazy topics that Bill chose, but they almost are perfect when you really use them. And again, it's how did this affect me? How am I threatened by this thing? What is bothering me about it? Another one, simple one, gas prices. What bothers you? Well, it's always too much and it's controlled and it's a monopoly and we have no choice. We have to pay it, blah, blah, blah. What does that threaten? Yeah, that threatens my fear. If I can't afford it, if I can't get to work, my car doesn't work, that's a problem. My ambitions, it could affect my work. Yeah, maybe that. Not personal relations, not sex relations. My self-esteem, not really, maybe not. And then what was the other one?
Ambition?
There's 6 total.
Yeah, self-esteem,
personal
relations, and sexual relations. Ambition, security, and fear.
Security, yeah, it does affect my security. National security, gasoline does. It would cripple us, could cripple our economy, as it did in the 70s. So again, Think outside the box, and you'd be amazed how those words, and if you want to know where they're at, just look up an AA Big Book online. It's on page 60.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
60.
I can flip right to it.
Wait a minute. It's 58 for the 12 steps, and then a couple has a 4-step stuff, and I'm going to say 62. No, that's not 62. It's 63. Dan's looking it up right now for you guys. And you can probably just Google it, too. You don't even probably have to look at a big book. You just look up the third column of the 4-step, and you'll find what it is.
It kind of goes from 64 to 65. They're actually listed on 64, though.
Okay, 64. So that's a gimme column, because I tell my guy, just write them down like you're doing an exercise. Like just boom, 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 boom. Listen to your music. Smell your incense. Just don't think. I'm going to say this several times. Don't think. All right, let's get to the final and best column, and that's all we're going to cover today is the columns. We'll save the juicy fear inventory, a juicy sex inventory for later. All right, so we've got our 3 columns done. We're moving on to column 4. Column 4 is the magic column that they used to call what was my part. Now, what they're saying and what the assumption is by our founder, Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, is that despite my human tendency to want to blame everybody else for what's happening to me, if I will do my inventory and follow the thread back long enough, I will find that at some point in my life, I made a decision based on self, which later placed me in a position to be hurt. So that decision based on self can be something as simple as, well, I mean, I think I love her, and well, I mean, I think I want to be married, so okay, let's get married. That was not a victim. That was a decision that you made of your own volition to be married to this person. Years later, as you're having problems, I want to blame her. It's all her. She's doing this to me. And that's where we fall into being a victim. This process of the 4th column will free you from self-pity, and it will free you from being a victim the rest of your life, because you will realize that when you get done with your entire inventory, you've played an active role in just about everything in your life, an active participating role. And the great news about that is I can change what I do. I can't change what she's doing. I can't change what he's doing, right? And if you keep poking your finger and saying they're doing it to me, you're going to be stuck the rest of your life. You're screwed. They can still do it to you. So in this column, they used to say, I want to write what was my part. Like I'm looking at them and what did I do that maybe I could have done better. Maybe I shouldn't have done it that way. Maybe that was wrong. That's a hard thing for us to even admit, that maybe I was wrong that I did that. But I think it's much better to do it in our more refined, modern 2024, what we've learned way. And instead of saying what was my part, I like to say, what did I do? I like to approach the 4th column from the idea that I'm a fly on the wall, going back in time and observing the entire interaction as an objective scientist, just like studying a lab rat. I'm going to watch Christopher and see what he did before that situation that led up to that. I'm going to see what he did during that interaction, because he doesn't want to look at himself. He doesn't want to see what he really did. You know, I want to say, well, she's the one that said bad things to me, and I won't see a single bad word that I said to her about what she was. I will just see what she called me. And then I want to look at afterwards. How did I react? Did I react with resentment and drink myself to death? Did I blame them and have a altar at home of how much I hate them with a dartboard and everything of them on my wall? These are actions I'm taking, and it's important that I see these patterns, these character defects, these things, these weaknesses in me that I repeat over and over. And if a person never finds these patterns, they're going to never change, and they're going to never grow and get anything better in their life. When you realize that our own flaws, our own character defects that we've acquired over time, that you will identify in this 4th column and in your 5th step with your sponsor, are the root cause of all the troubles in your life, how empowering is that? Because I can actually change myself. I can stop doing these things. I can learn new tools. And that's going to change your entire existence on this planet. So in the 4th column, you get to write as much as you can. You don't have to keep it to 19 words, but you will notice we've only got 3 empty spaces. We got the first space where the dog was, and then we got the 2 empty spaces underneath that, right? And that's by design. We don't want you writing so much that you're going to crucify yourself. I don't want you to say, I'm so terrible, and I did this, and I did this. No, pick the high points, dude. What's the main things that you did in that situation or with that person that you regret the most, you are embarrassed the most by, or you have the most shame and guilt about? That's it. The worst things. Just get them down. Little statements again. Right? Now, it's tricky because some people might have issues that you can say with no doubt they did not cause them to do anything before that might have caused that to happen. So our approach of saying, what did you do before, during, and after? If somebody is a victim of sexual abuse as a child, before, absolutely nothing. I didn't do a damn thing. I was a child. That was a victim circumstance. I didn't have any power. I have nothing to write down in that column. During the interaction, again, you're a child against an adult. There's nothing you could have done. You were a victim, blah, blah, blah. I'll accept all that. What'd you do after? Oh, I carried hate in my heart. Rightly so. We're not saying it's good or bad. Don't judge yourself as you write these things. We're not saying this is not this is not any kind of confession where you're going to be rated about how bad your sin was. This is just looking at objectively, what'd you do? What are your patterns? What'd you do? Resentment, hate, told everybody about it every time I had a chance, character assassinated that person behind their back, picked them apart, hated them, whatever it is. Just write that down. Now, the good news is, as you're doing your entire fourth column, you will find yourself writing the same patterns over and over, to the point that when I got done with my fifth step, when I did it this way, I found out I was like a wind-up toy that did the same shit in every circumstance. Like, watch Christopher go. Watch Christopher go. And I'd like to think with my ego, no, I'm very unique, and I don't do that. I'm different. And what are you talking? I don't fit in a box. What do you mean? Now, these are my character defects. And they all, guess what, folks? What do you talk about all the time on this podcast? They all come from childhood. Your character defects, your bad habits, the things you do that you know are not healthy for you today are all coping skills that you learned to survive your childhood, but today now they're hurting you. They've turned from coping skills into defects of character that are limiting you from getting where you want to be in life. So this is power. This is learning about myself. This is learning the things I can do something about to change. And this is the stuff your sponsor can take and make gold out of in your fifth step. Again, still, even as I'm writing the fourth column, I don't have to figure out why I'm fucked up. I just have to get it on paper so I can go to my sponsor and he'll explain to me why I'm fucked up, because he'll make connections between shit that I just can't see. And I can't tell you how many times I've done a fifth step and my guy's been like, and I'll have that awakening moment because I didn't see that. Can't believe it. I can't believe you said that. And a lot of times it's higher power because we invite higher power to the fifth step to help come through and point these things out. So again, that is the fourth column process where it works the best. First column, person, place, or thing, institution, idea, what gets on your nerves, what bothers you, blah, blah, blah. Second column, what's your beef? What's your main beef? What's your main beef, man? You got limited time on the microphone, 19 words, get it down quick. What's your main thing that you have against that? How did it affect you? Did it affect your fear, your security, your ambitions, your self-esteem, personal relations, sex relations? Fourth column, all right, what'd you do, bro? What was your reaction? What'd you do that led up to that? And boy, how many times have I seen my people discover that there was actions they took that put themselves in that position to be hurt later on? Well, I mean, I don't feel responsible that this guy shot me and stole my money. Really? Well, wait a minute. What are you doing in that neighborhood at 2 a.m? Well, shit, man, I had to get my dope. Oh, okay, so you're making a decision based on yourself because you need to get that dope to feel better, and you went to the worst neighborhood you could at 2 a.m, but it's not any part of you? You didn't do anything in there? What did you do? That's why I like that question, because I think we will fudge that what was my part shit. We're too slick for that. We are like little convicts that will dance out of court easily with that question. So, but what did I do? I just have to observe and say, oh, yeah, I did do that shit. I did do that too. So I hope that helps clear up some. It's really hard to just get it in a first take. So you might need to listen to this some more, or there's a ton of speakers online. Just look up AA speakers and 4-step. And there is no one right way, but I do know there are ways that I find it's more efficient and people seem to get better results. That's my argument. So choose your poison carefully when you're listening to certain teachers. Now, I try to give an overview. There's no way to remember everything, so I'm going to invite Dan the man to get in here about any points he might want to add, and then we'll get our question of the week. I've only got one this week for you, and then we'll wrap it up. So, Dan, any thoughts on the inventory? And I didn't even talk about how good it feels afterwards to get that all off your chest, but whatever angle you want to take on it.
When you get it done. One thing about that I noticed with my trash can, That fermented sludge in there stunk, and it kept me away from people because I wouldn't get close to you, and I wouldn't get I would keep distance from my wife because I didn't want her smelling my stuff, And just as an analogy, it put distance between me and the people I love because I didn't want to get too close to you with that stink all over me. I like it when a guy calls me to be in second column and he realized he wrote somebody down twice. That means they were rolling, right? They weren't thinking; they were moving through. And I have people. In my first column. I had them in there more than one time. A few people, but I was given good directions, and I was just puking them out. It is. I find it's tough to keep people momentum. Man, do not lose momentum, as you said, man. It's tough. I got a guy losing momentum right now. And it's not going to be good for him. And there is something, we say this thing, like people will use grandma's cake as like you got to follow the recipe. Mm-hmm. And if you leave ingredients out or you monkey with ingredients, you might get something, but it ain't going to be grandma's cake, right? And I think as a sponsor, I have a responsibility to deliver what was delivered to me, considering how well it went. And along with the ingredients in that cake is a cook time. That's also important. And I think that time frame of doing this work, like you said, getting through this 4-step in 4 to 6 weeks, in order to get the full effect, you need to adhere to that. And I have experience in my past where I've watched people drag it out, and they didn't get the effect. They didn't get what
I like that analogy, though, because I've also heard in recovery that when the cake's in the oven, stop opening up the door to see if it's cooking.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's the guy trying to figure out his shit as he's writing it down. It's like, that's not your job, dude.
Yep.
Your job is to write. Your job is not to figure it out.
Yeah. When we got here, we was asking, I'm going to ask a guy to get to praying if he believes in something or not. And then when we get to this step, before he starts at work, he's going to be asking his higher power to help give him the words and provide these names. And once you've asked for that, you're off the hook on what comes in your head. Write it down. It doesn't make any difference. You don't get to choose. And I kind of like to put an angle on it. The big book says that we made a list of people we were angry with. Well, I'm just not a real angry dude, and even wasn't back when I was using. And I would have a quarter of my inventory if I limited my inventory to those I was angry with. And plus, people that I owed amends to would end up falling off the list because, I may not be mad at them. So I like to give a person an angle of writing down everybody that had, the people that had an impact on who you are today. Mm-hmm. Whether, if they made you mad or if you did something bad to them, what happens there too. I kind of opened the door for them to put some stuff in there that people, when I say that people have a impact on them, well, maybe this dude's high school football coach had a positive impact on him. And when we get out to 8 and 9, he's got ammo in his inventory to do good amends and go maybe contact this football coach and thank him for touching his life when he was in high school. So I what I tell people is like we want to broaden that definition of resentment, and plus that that gets more names on that list and gets more ammunition so you can find out what makes you tick.
So let me break that down for a second, because that's where the confusion arises with old timers, is that we wrote down the things we were angry with, and then Bill goes on to say we were burned up, and I believe he says sore, and sore sounds like hurt.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do want to point out as a wordsmith, because I do write all the time, resentment is not about anger. The word resentment means to re-feel and re-experience. It does not say anger. It's whatever.
Yep.
It's unfinished business. You have not dealt with it. Your dad dying needs to go on your fucking 4-step. You didn't get a chance to make peace with him. Yep. Your dog dying as a kid from an accident. Christ, put that trauma down.
Doubt.
What are you talking about? You're not. You might be angry about that, but you're hurt. So yeah, to get down everything, and again, if it's not a big deal, you just wrote something down. Yeah, it's no big deal.
There's nothing there, and if you can't come up with anything in the other columns for a particular item, it's no big deal.
But I really like what you said. Thank you for reminding me of that. The prayer, we do a prayer before we start our session. We do a little meditation, 5-minute prayer, and ask our power to join us and give us the words. Yeah. And it's surprising how well that works.
Yep. I tell my guys to ask for that. Sit there, ask higher power for help with the words, and sit quietly, meditate, and then the words will start falling into your head. And when that happens, pick up your pen and go to it.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, man. And I promise you, the church, I don't know any place else that has these tools. And if you want to save money on therapy and you don't want to be a basket case the rest of your life, again, I used this analogy before, but I just like it. In The Matrix, when Neo goes to see the Oracle and he expects to see God, he finds a woman baking him cookies, and she says, "Do you know what that means?" And he looks up at the Latin sign, and it says, "Know thyself." That's the most valuable information you can have in life. Know thyself, man. And that's what you'll come out of that fifth step and just be like, wow, clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity about what my trash can is carrying.
Yeah. And Scott Lee says that, this is not who we are. Most of this stuff is who we are not. And we got to get that peeled off of us. So
because we're sick people trying to get well, not bad people trying to get good.
Yeah.
And so if you're interested, we're going to have a full book, and it'll be out soon. We'll just stay tuned. It's taking a little bit of work to get the final drafts finished, which will have all the directions in there. But in the meantime, if you want to get started, you can find these speakers online. You can get an AA Big Book and follow the template and just listen to this podcast again and get these little tricks and trades.
Or you can join TSSR.
Yeah, we do have a group called 12-Step
Or any 12-Step group.
Recovery.
Go to the 12-Step group. Anyway, that fits your deal.
So since he brought it up, we do have a couple groups in Louisville called 12-Step Spiritual Recovery, 2 of which are online that you can come, or one is online. That's a co-ed meeting you can come to on Thursday nights, and just go to 12stepspiritualrecovery.com and get the Zoom number and come join us. Come say hello, and you would be more than welcome. It's going to be the I Am 1-2 group after we get done with the book finished. But again, we want these tools out there for everybody because they work, and then we would all have a much better life and a better world if we had these. So thank you for that, Dan. I appreciate you so much. We will now progress straight to the question and answer period of our podcast, where we take questions from you, the listener. If you will send them to IAM12, those digits right there, the word recovery, at gmail.com. Send your comments, questions, jokes, concerns, IAM12recovery at gmail.com. We only have one question this week, so if Dan's feeling it, we can get right into it if you want to.
Keep rolling.
All right. So I didn't get a chance to print this out because the goofy printer at work wasn't working correctly, so I'm just going to read this off my phone here. But I love the question, and I just thought we could really kick this around a little bit. All right. This is a question. Thank you for sending it in, and please, everybody, send in your questions. We need them. This is a question I've had ever since I started going to meetings. In sobriety, it is okay to smoke cigarettes, vape, use CBD products, dip tobacco, etc. Or if it is not okay, why don't we urge people to stop doing those things like we do tell them to stop drinking alcohol, doing hard drugs, and smoking marijuana? This is an excellent question. Again, let me read one more time. Is it okay to smoke cigarettes, vape, use CBD products, dip tobacco? And if it's not okay, why don't we urge people to stop doing these like we urge them to get sober off other substances? So there's a long history, particularly let's talk just about nicotine at first. Nicotine's a fascinating drug that still, we understand it. We've done all the studies, but I don't think they still really fully understand it. We do know that the reason it's so addictive is because of the frequency of use. It's the re-upping, the fact that you're taking a puff every few seconds, and especially with a vape, that's even more addictive because you're just getting that hit over and over. A heroin addict fixes himself in the morning, is good for 4 to 6 hours, maybe 8 if he's lucky, and it's a good dose. But with cigarettes, it's like, I need another one. I need another one. And then you're constantly upping yourself, and that's teaching the brain hit reward, hit reward, hit reward, and it just sucks you right into addiction. However, having said that, it does act on a different reward pathway mechanism of the brain that doesn't seem to drive people to the extreme behaviors of robbing people at gunpoint to get a pack of cigarettes. Now, I guarantee somebody's maybe done that in history because nicotine addiction is very fierce. But we don't have the problems in society, in the courts with CPS and kids that arise with other drugs, and even legal ones like alcohol, so you can't say it's because it's legal, that they just don't show up with caffeine and nicotine. And so not having those problematic issues, and it's not going to cause necessarily a person to relapse, although it might, so stay tuned, I'll explain. That's why I think the tradition has been like, well, you're quitting everything else. Don't try to quit everything. It's just too hard. It's too stressful. That's what I was told in 1983. Smoke up. But I also wish I had been told, but when you want to quit, come to me and I will help you, because I see sponsees who will come into meetings and say, I'm thinking about quitting smoking, and they'll get discouraged. And I'm like, wait a minute, dude, you're telling that person to have blood cancer one day. Why don't you fucking support them? What's the worst that could happen? They fail? They go back to smoking? I did many times. I failed many times trying to quit. But quitting smoking in my first year of recovery was the greatest gift next to sobriety that I've ever given myself. I have asthma and a history, and I have other issues, and I would have been not here on this planet had I been smoking all that time. Plus, I was smoking up to 3 packs a day. Camels. Marlboro Hundreds and Candles. Yeah, oh, God. Such an addict. So, again, there is that philosophy that it's too stressful. Don't make yourself fail at your sobriety. If it comes to smoking a cigarette, for God's sake, please have a cigarette. Please vape. Don't lose your sobriety. So I do agree with that to a point. Then I went to these trainings where they were saying, you got to be careful because there's these synergy effects between certain chemicals. One of them is cocaine, and we know that alcohol and cocaine go well together. This is why the caffeine companies have learned how to put Red Bull and shit like that into your drinks at bars now. This is over the last 10 years. Why? Because it keeps you going longer and you drink more. Again, more money for the company. That's all it's ever about. So, they have a synergy, like one works against the other, like a speedball that keeps me going, but makes you a little drunk, and, finding that balance. Well, with cigarettes, a lot of people smoked mostly or a lot more when they were drunk. So what that could do is cause a trigger in your brain to say, oh, while he's smoking a few more cigarettes, he also needs the beer in his hand. He also needs the shot of Jack Daniels. So you got to be careful of that could be a trigger of memory sense, activating those other reward pathway circuits. But it's an individual decision. Talk to your sponsor. And now let's talk a little bit about CBD, because this is a new development in the field of what's okay and what's not okay. There is zero regulation of the CBD industry today in America as it stands right now on December 19th, 2024. Zero regulation, no oversight, nobody watching what they're putting in there, nobody's seeing what the potency is, nobody's seeing if there's even real THC in there or not. I mean, literally, anybody can put a package out there and say it's good, and you're going at their word. It's the Wild West. Nobody they're accountable to. If there happens to be some THC in there and you happen to pop dirty on your drug test at work, sorry, we didn't know. And I have had many people in my group who work for a very big company in our town who got in trouble with that, and they didn't realize. Oh, I didn't know. Well, it's not Captain Crunch. Do you realize Captain Crunch is regulated way more? It is regulated to the ingredient, to the finest grain, that if it's on the list, it's got to be in there, and it's got to be this and that, and packaged and safe and preservatives. And yeah, none of that for the CBD industry. Same deal with the edible industry for THC. All over the map. I don't care what they say is on the label, 80%, 20%. They've gone out and bought random goods across multiple states where it's legal, and they go home and test it. And it's like, whoa, this is off the graph. This you're getting ripped off. Because why? People want to make money. That's all. They just want to sell you shit. So CBD has been touted as one of those miracle cures, like the Dr. John Medicine Show coming through the old Wild West town, selling that elixir to your grandma as a cure-all, and it was just alcohol, or it's cocaine. And then we're going to go through this period like we do, like dumb humans. We never learn from history. Oh, well, it's going to fix everything. It'll fix everything because some guy said so. And they're not a doctor. And I know when you talk about this stuff, people are so fierce about it that they'll go on anecdotal belief and they won't listen to science. But I go to the trainings and I seek these trainings out on marijuana, and inevitably they bring up Delta 8 and they bring up CBD. We have to. It's part of the landscape now. And you're taking your chances. You don't know what you're getting. And most of it's placebo effect. And don't discount placebo effect. I had a whole training on that one day. The mind's ability to believe that if you believe it's working, you will get the effect. It's astounding how powerful that is, power of suggestion to the mind. But be careful, man. You're taking risks that we don't know what the side effects will be long-term use. We don't know what's going to happen to you. I told my patients in group the other day with the marijuana that's out there, they're the guinea pigs, because this is a whole new drug. This isn't your grandpa's marijuana. We are just getting the studies started to find out what might happen to you. So just be careful. Everybody has to make their own choices. I mean, hell, for this person who asked the question, we got that California sobriety shit where people are smoking marijuana and calling themselves sober. You know how ridiculous that is? I want to walk into one of those meetings where somebody says that, and I'm going to wait my turn, just wait my turn, and I'm going to raise my hand and say, hey, man, I relate to this guy out here because I'm Portland, Oregon sober, man. I'm just doing heroin. Yeah, it's fucking good. I'm fine. I'm going to work every day. It's got me this meeting tonight. I rigged up. I'm Portland, Oregon sober. Not to pick on Portland, Oregon, but they're kind of an epicenter for that epidemic. It's insane. It's not sobriety. It's not recovery. Stop fooling yourself. You're still using a substance. You are still hooked. So those are some thoughts. Dan, I know, did you smoke when I first met you in early recovery?
I dipped.
You dipped.
And
there we go. Your favorite. You do have.
And you said smoking is hard to kick. At the dip it's just constant. It's not even between puffs. And people, you have it in your mouth forever. And in 2017 or something, I think it was 2017, I actually put down nicotine for 2 years. And in the COVID era, I picked it back up again. And I put it down pretty quick and went to the pouches, but I still use them. It's starting to bother me. It's starting to get in my head that I don't want to do that. But nicotine's fucking hard to quit.
It is.
It's fucking hard. I've had that discussion, and I'll throw in another chemical. I've had people talk to me, and they throw the caffeine into that mix. We're going to use we can use nicotine, and we can use caffeine, and we can. There's a third one that somebody said wasn't a CBD stuff. But I have experience with a couple people who have relapsed that they believe it came off of a CBD use, that it flipped the switch, the old phenomenon of craving kind of thing, and they got a little taste of it and went, oh man, and said, okay, well then I'm gonna start smoking real pot, and they didn't end up relapsing on the alcohol, but relapsed on that and tracks it back to it when that CBD use. It can't, like you said, they say it fixes everything, and nothing fixes everything. There's nothing.
Unfortunately, anybody that says that, and you remember that old Looney Tunes cartoon, and the person's face would turn into a lollipop, and it would say "sucker."
Yeah. And we've been through this thing with. Remember what was the fake pot, and might even still be around.
The spice.
Yeah. They're selling that stuff at gas stations for a while, and and like it was legal. What's the other one? There's another one that everybody's talking about. I see people talk about Kratom. I see, people are coming in on it, and you can go over Louisville and buy it at a store, and toying around with stuff. You don't know what it's going to do, but that's that core of us being addicts, man, and alcoholics having that switch flipped in our lives at some point that got to be doing something, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is the heart of addiction. I need to take something from the outside to fix my insides. Yep. And recovery is, what if we could fix your insides so you wouldn't need things from the outside to feel better?
Amen.
That's what it's all about.
Yep.
So caffeine's a little different depending on the form. There's a world of difference between coffee and tea and Monsters. Monsters are extremely unhealthy, and you can look up all kinds of new research on that. They're horrible for your body. But caffeine from a tea or a plant, if it's grown organically and in the sunlight, it's got polyphenols in there. Mm. It's got antioxidants in there. It's a health drink to a certain point. And
reasonable caffeine levels.
Well, yeah, that's for everybody to decide for themselves. If it's not keeping you up at night and it's not causing you jittery problems.
But what's a Monster's got 2 or 3 cups worth of caffeine, coffee in it.
Yeah.
And that can be a problem for people.
Well, and then they're giving them to children, which is throwing their hormones out of whack while they're still growing up. So, again, it's always great in the program to not follow the crowd. And I've seen the crowd sometimes going towards the abyss, and you have to be the guy that's going to stand aside and be logical and say, I don't have to fall into line. I don't have to buy the hype, and I get to choose my own way. That is probably the most beautiful gift in recovery. If you want to roll with California sobriety, don't bring it around me, but okay, I respect you. I'm not going to change my opinion about you, but I don't want to be around you because I don't want that shit. I want a real, clean, good life. But you get to choose your own way. So for the person who wrote this question, AA has no opinion on outside issues. That has served us well. So you asked, why don't we talk about that? Well, AA's tradition is, let's not get into things that are probably just going to cause us a lot of trouble, because everybody's going to have a different opinion on it. As you can see, Dan and I had many different views, and we're just two guys. So add another one, and we probably got to fight. So, but thank you for the question, because I think it's going to help a lot of people. The one thing I would end on is I want to reemphasize, if you have any part of you, like Dan was talking about, that little niggling voice that's saying, maybe I should put this shit down, I know that's higher power. I know that's talking to your inner soul. And sometimes that voice is telling you that before disaster strikes. If we only learn to listen, sometimes it's hard to follow, but start with only learn to listen to it. I would never squash any newcomer that says they want to quit smoking. I'd be like, hell yeah, let's do it. I'll help you. Come on, we can do it. Yeah, yeah. I would coach them on it. Because again, our founder, Bill Wilson, died from emphysema. And people that saw that described it. He was a gulping fish out of water. Couldn't fucking breathe. Fuck the tobacco companies. Even a world of difference between rolling your own cigarette leaf, tobacco leaf from a field that you know where it's grown organically, and then going to the tobacco companies. Again, it's what where you're getting it was your source. So. All right, folks. Well, thanks for joining us this week, and please send us your questions one more time. It's im12recovery@gmail.com, and we will keep putting these out and trying to help as many people as we can, and spread the word. Pass it on, share it with somebody, do a little service work. Say, here, I thought you might like this. I heard you were in your 4-step. Check this out, and maybe you'll help save a life. So we like to end the podcast with the Serenity Prayer, as we do every week. So, Dan, if you would like to join me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. You die if you don't. Woohoo! We love y'all. Come back and see us next week. Peace out.